It's the Jochen Mass Trophy, race 9 here at Silverstone. There is the front row, Nissan R90C with Andy Purdy, very quick driver on board. Alongside him, the XJR9 Jaguar of Chris Bunkum. More Jaguars and that beautiful Silver Arrows Sauber Mercedes C9 on the second row. And Jaguar and Nissan make up row 3 as well. Watch out for Gary Pearson, very good driver.
Yeah, there's a name from Le Mans, Jamie Campbell-Water. He's showing of David Hart in David's 962C. That's being run by ex-Kramer mechanics, so look out for that. Paul Livesey in the Spice, Andrew Haddon in Spice, and Paul White will be sharing his Aston Martin with Bob Burridge.
Yeah, then the Ford Roush Mustang, not a Maxim as it says there, it is actually a Roush Mustang, and the Ford C100, that's a very interesting car, and we'll talk to you about that more as the race progresses. But as you can see, we have the side-by-side rolling 2x2 start. Andy Purdy has the race under his control as he comes to the line. The revs rise. I haven't done the maths yet, but there's an awful lot of horsepower about to be unleashed in front of us. Something in the region of 20,000 horsepower across the line now. And we're racing, and Purdy in the Nissan does get the jump, but watch the Mercedes down the inside. It came to grief here last year, but thankfully it's had a very good start, and at least we've cleared the first corner.
Yeah, Rob Sherrard deciding discretion respective part of valor there in the Mercedes, but look, he's up into second now already. He's just gone snuck ahead there of Chris Bunkum's Jaguar XJR9. Great move there by Rob.
And Chris will not like that at all. But this Mercedes, he's got ahead there in the twisty bits. Wait till it gets on the hanger straight. It's a low revving V8. I remember them at Le Mans in '89. They had a distinctively different sound to anything else, and particularly, of course, the screaming V12 Jaguars. And look at how it pulls away down the straight.
Yeah, and that is the actual car that won the '89 World Championship for Mercedes. Not the Le Mans winning car, but it's the World Championship winning car.
Correct, the sister car to the winner for Jochen Mass, Stanley Dickens and Manuel Reuter in '89, and it is actually in '89, and it is actually done up as if it was that car with the 62 and the yellow colours.
It's the Schlesser-Baldi car.
Correct.
From that
yeah. There goes the Aston Martin we were talking about earlier on, and that is the battle for second position as that beautiful and immaculate field of cars head up the hill and come round to us for the first time. The Aston Martin, the former David Leslie mount, of course. I remember taking pictures of that at the Mulsanne corner in '89, and there is the pass back. I said Bunkum wouldn't, leaving that alone, and Chris Bunkum, who's driving on his own, so he will have to come in for a time pit stop, of course, just to even everything up in this 1 hour race. The clock is counting down, and just look at the lap time here. We were looking at 2-minute lap times for the touring cars this morning, and it's going to be nothing like that. Back on board with Justin Law in the Bud Light Jaguar, the Daytona car, across the line now in front of us. Just something that little bit different, and as they go across the line, it's Andy Purdy who leads by 4 seconds.
It's amazing. We could be in 1988 here watching these pictures at the moment, couldn't we? Just let's tell you about Chris Bunkum's car. Nice history of his car. It's a 1988 Jaguar XJR9. This is the one that was run at Le Mans by Danny Sullivan, Davy Jones and Price Cobb at Le Mans that year. The year, of course, that Jaguar took their first win since 1957. So a huge prominence, that car.
Yeah, that was Wallace's first win, wasn't it? Of course,
it was indeed.
He was his
Johnny
first
Dumfries and Jan Lammers. Yeah. So here we go, down to Hanger Straight, down to Stowe, and they're really pushing on. Of course, in 2 years' time, we're probably going to see the pits down here, not that bridge, aren't we? Yeah,
it's going to take some getting used to, isn't it?
Here comes the Aston. That's Paul White on board that at the moment. He will be handing over to Bob Burridge, and that car, of course, another car driven by our dear friend David Leslie, and very much of this meeting is in memory of David. We've had this morning, we have David Leslie touring car race, another one tomorrow, and there's about 5 cars in this race that David drove as well.
And that car still wearing on its left front wheel arch a black stripe with David Leslie's name on it. It was similarly attired here last year. There's the leader then, and well, we watch these cars out on the circuits. The beauty of a meeting like this with an extra day on the Friday for a bit of practice and qualifying is that we actually get to see the cars away from the commentary box in these screens. So we were down at the bottom of Farm and through Vale, looking at back up through the circuit there, and just had a ball, didn't we, Mark?
We ought to get a proper job one day. This car Andy Purdy's driving. Andy Purdy, some of you probably remember him, 2007. Andy won first time out in the Richard Lloyd Porsche at Brands Hatch. Repeated it here again at Silverstone at the end of the year. Is really probably the best young driver in the field. He's a pusher.
Just saw the Calsonic Nissan going through there as well. It's the Gareth Evans, Bob Burridge car, and that is being driven by Bob at the moment. He's going to try and drive 2 cars in this race. Chris Buncombe has held the lead that time around, put in the fastest lap of the race, a 1:40.5. So despite the fact that Andy Purley pulled out 4 seconds the previous lap, that gap has now been held. This is classic endurance racing stuff. We've seen this before with these races. An hour just about long enough to have a little bit of tactics and try and hold something in the tyres. There'll be a driver stop, but no fuel and no tyres. Unless there's any problem with the tyre, you would normally do a tyre change for performance here.
Yeah, they've worked out over the years that if you just turn down the turbos a little bit, just back off, you can get an hour of fuel out of these cars. That's what they're doing. So they are filled to the brim, of course, John. So these are heavy cars at this stage of the race. Nice fight going on here between the
fourth position.
Car. Yes, it's for 4th. We've still got on board Justin Law, and he's holding off the second of the Silk Cup Jaguars. Gary, that's the 1990 V6 turbo-powered one, the Jaguar XJR11. That's when Bernie Eccleston changed the rules of Group C, and they had to start going to 3.5-litre turbo engines like that. On board then with Justin. We'll be handing over to Andy. Hope he has a better time than last year when Andy didn't actually take the car over. When he just took it over, did half of that, and that was it. So Andy really champing at the bit now.
Justin, over the years, has really built a reputation for himself in these cars. And you have to wonder, Mark, what he would have been like in period in these cars, because he's clearly a very, very talented driver indeed.
Yep.
He's Justin Law.
And he's driving so many cars today. He's got his ex-Allen Mann Jaguar Mark 1. He's going to be, either has raced or he's going to be racing later on, and the Lister Jaguar.
These cars very, very quick indeed. The Mercedes-Benz probably the quickest in the straight line. People being slightly coy about figures, but getting onto the sharp end of 180 miles an hour is the kind of revs that are being pulled there. Now here's a battle for position further back down the field. The Momo car looks fabulous, doesn't it? That's the Spikes SE89C.
Yep, that's one of the Nissan cars that the factory developed. They decided they're going to build several cars for America. Gianpiero Moretti ordered one for his Momo team, but never actually raced it in period because the cars were banned by the time they got it ready in '93.
Yeah, look at those schnorkels there up on the side, feeding.
Nice passing move. He's coming through from the back of the field, by the way. Had a few problems in qualifying. Yeah.
And that little Spice as well looks good with the...
Takes it back, of course. They're so nimble, the Spices and the Tigers. This is where they have the advantage nowadays.
I do like that colour scheme on that car. That works as well. Meantime, back for this... Oh, and that's the Aston Martin stationary. That's Bob Burridge. Oh, what a shame.
Yeah, this car started 10th and they were fighting for 9th place. He's pulled off. Now, where is this? This is just coming down to the Vale, isn't it?
And, we were watching that battle for 4th position. What a shame that is. Justin Law holding on to 4th position from Pearson behind him. That Jaguar there with the wheel spat. What an elegant car that is.
Yeah. Tom Walkinshaw did things right, didn't he? So battle of the Jaguars. The only difference being it's IMSA car against Group C car, which never happened in real life at the time. But doesn't it make a great spectacle? But look at the wing that Bud Light car's carrying. Well, isn't absolutely massive?
Yes. Now, isn't that interesting as well, as we see the Calsonic car coming into the pit lane? Just talking about that earlier on, and that looks like rather too early for a stop there. So I'm afraid that's a problem.
Bob Burridge should be handing over to Gareth Evans. That was Nissan's 1988 car, of course, a March Nissan, just before Nissan Motorsport Europe decided to do their own thing. Here he is.
Yeah, this is, I think, was it Gareth that started this car? Was it Bob?
Yeah, Bob started.
So the Aston then must have had Paul White on board when it stopped out on the circuit. Having said that,
they're going to take the back off, aren't they? Well, our information is that did Bob start? 23? No, Bob started that car. It was Bob on board, you're right. Yeah.
Just look at, you're talking about the rear wing.
Paul White out in the country at the moment. Sorry, the rear wing,
The rear wing on that car, and you look at the difference in how they've worked. Effectively, what you're doing there is extending the rear bodywork, almost making it a long tail, aren't you, the way that rear wing's working, rather than the Jaguar behind, which is a more traditional style of wing, single plane rather than the double plane. But look how it's having to sit lower down. The regulations meaning, of course, that the wing couldn't be higher than the top of the
Yeah,
passenger cell.
So you took it down.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, it was a bit of a caused a bit of problem for Andy on Thursday. He had a coming together with the Group 44 Jaguar and removed that wing on the M plate on the right-hand side, and unfortunately the Group 4 Jaguar clattered down the barriers, so there's a lot of unhappiness down there. Yes, Jaguars aren't supposed to hit Jaguars. This one comes down to.
Indeed. And if we see the Group 44 Jag, you'll see that it is still bearing some of the battle scars down the left-hand side, which have been lovingly repaired with what you always need at a race meeting, racer tape. Well, that duct tape down the side.
That Calsonic car still in the pits. I can see they're still having a look at it. He's up to second now then.
No, still in third, my apologies.
Yep.
4 seconds behind second place.
Rob Sherrard, the Australian, who was the owner of Blue Skies Airlines. That was the sort of EasyJet of Australia. He sold that a few years ago and decided he was going to buy a few Group C cars. And what a car to buy. I mean, to get probably...
How did he manage to crowbar that away from the Mercedes?
There's one in America, apparently. Yeah. And there's this one. But this is the World Championship winning car of '89. So why would Mercedes want to sell the cars? Now, the World Championship. This is the
Purdy.
Purdy's caught him, has he?
So we've had a... Now, I'm confused now. We're not showing why that car... Surely Purdy hasn't lapped all the way around.
Yes,
I think that's a problem for the Mercedes-Benz.
That is the Nissan. There's two from A cars in this race. One's a Nissan, which was leading, as a Porsche. So this is Paul White being pulled backwards, yeah.
So a problem for the Mercedes-Benz was in third position.
Yeah, it's a Nissan falling back, yeah. In fact, just...
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. Our timing screen's just taking a little while to
Now, Purdy's back up to speed now, so...
Whatever happened...
Did he have a little off somewhere? See if the Mercedes can gobble him up. He's right on his tail, going down to Cox. Look at that.
They got that right, didn't they?
Rob reckons they're running probably 800 horsepower today.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, they've turned it down a bit, you know. His co-driver, we're going to be seeing later in this race, a guy called Crick. First time ever at Silverstone, first time ever in a Group C car. He's done 14 Bathurst Thousands, but he's never driven a Group C sports car before.
And for the real anoraks among you, as we're looking at a lock-up from Buncombe, who's now the leader. So let's look back to second place. There is the second place battle. And Purdy, having led impressively, is now battling for second place. So Chris Buncombe leads by a considerable margin. We haven't seen the 121 Silk Cut Jaguar for a little while. This is Andy Purdy, who raced off into the lead and then managed to have some kind of problem, whether it was self-induced or mechanical, we're not sure, but at club the car virtually came to a stop. It has run impeccably since, he says, touching something wood. There is your leader, Chris Buncombe, coming back down the hangar straight. We're into the pit stop window now. 30 seconds, all but a few tenths. And again, just a little bit of locking up from Chris. He is pushing on. His last lap, a 41.1, miles quicker than anybody else. Nobody within 3 seconds of him. Yeah. Meantime, the battle for second mark is back down under a second again. Yeah, and there it is.
0.7 of a second last time round, and Rob Sherrard really wound up today. I'm so impressed. Rob has been on a steep learning curve with this car. It's his third year in the car, but second year in the car rather. Remember, it got fairly badly damaged last year. Cops, there was a big accident. Someone else, one of the German cars, tried to outbrake the whole field, missed, and this car was probably the worst damaged of the lot. They got it rebuilt, and look at the speed he's got today. Great stuff. But Andy Purdy back up to speed, as we heard, and still pushing hard. John Buncombe, though, 29 seconds ahead of these two.
I was talking with more than the odd one or two drivers yesterday in the paddock, and they said, you think you're doing well when you're going down Hangar Straight, probably pulling the sharp end of 180 miles an hour, and the Mercedes just goes by almost silently because it's such a low revving V8, and it has got a distinctively different sound from all the other howling racing engines. Yes, absolutely. Now, this is Andy Wallace.
Yep, Wallace goes out.
Going out of the pit lane. He can now get the car up to speed. Short shifting there. He's just getting some heat in the tyres. You can see the rev counter just to the left of centre.
Comes out in front of the Gebhardt we were talking about earlier.
Well, that's interesting because he came into the pits behind it. So
much quicker stop.
Whatever happened there, they managed to turn around that car, and it is a timed stop, by the way. Just so, again, if you think people aren't running around doing the kind of 30-second stops that we see at Le Mans nowadays. It's all about safety. They don't want anybody jumping in the car. Oh, this is the leader! The lead car's in the pits, and this is smoking brakes from the front
Just
end.
brakes, isn't it? Yeah, nothing worse than that. This was a Jaguar trait, of course, all through the Le Mans years. If it happened at the back, you just change the back end. Remember that?
They were the pioneers out. Nothing new. And again, fuel going in there.
Team's not worried about it. They're just standing there watching it. Can't do much until the car's moving again. So.
Mustn't sit with your foot on the brake though if you're sitting in the car, because you can bind up the pads to the discs, such is the massive amount of heat. We've seen that car just locking the odd front brake, coming down Hanger Straight and into Stowe. And that's taking a long time to put that fuel in compared to what we saw before on the Justin Law, Andy Wallace car. I have no doubt that there are many people watching this and listening to us for whom that car means sports car racing. The Jaguar in the silk cut colours and the varying iterations. Now here's the battle, which effectively now is for the lead. Neither of these cars have stopped, so Andy Purdy has, if you like, inherited the lead back after he had that problem with the From Air sponsored Nissan earlier on in the race, and the Mercedes-Benz just hanging on to the back. The 62 car with Rob Sherrod, hand over to Gregory Crick. Meantime, this is the Silkwood Jaguar pit, Chris Bunkham's pit.
He's just having a quick drink, he's get back in the car, so he's now got to, they've just gone past the second and third place cars. They've got another lap to do now before they come back to him. He won't be released for another minute or so yet, so and
that's a change of position. Once again, a problem for the From Air car. You just saw in the heat haze at Silverstone. Yes, that's what I said. In the heat haze, the Mercedes-Benz, the tail end of it, that short cut-off cam tail of the Mercedes-Benz, the Sauber C9 in the distance. But now the Benz has a problem, I think, because it slowed as it was coming onto the Hanger Straight, and Purdy's right up there sniffing a bit of blood. Again, was that a missed gear?
Yeah, it's difficult to tell, isn't it? Was Purdy actually just going wide, or was he actually
slowing? The class leader.
Yeah, the 711 Mustang. Great car, that.
Just a quick spin we're hearing for the Kent Abramson Ford Mustang in the 711 colours, the Roush car. Now this is still the battle for the lead. Remember, both of these cars owe us a pit stop. And the Mercedes-Benz leads at Silverstone.
Yeah. Never heard that before, have we?
The Gephardt getting it right in the middle of the battle for the lead.
They touched, unfortunately.
Oh, dear me. Now, let's see if there's any damage on the front end of that Nissan. I think he's got away with it. The Gephardt had been into the pits.
Yeah, there's Gareth Evans on board, and he's not a mean peddler. Gareth knows what he's doing, so it's not funny enough, Gareth drove that car, I remember, in period. So there we go. He's stuck there.
I think that might be... Oh no, I just saw a little puff of something out the back. Now watch this again, Mark. They're coming up the hill. The Mercedes makes the pass, and
this is going into farm, isn't it?
Purdy tries to go through.
Yeah,
side by side.
The Gephardt was just completely unsighted, wasn't he? He thought, it's Robin Ward at the wheel of that Gephardt.
Now this is what happened for the pass for the lead. Oh, and I actually think that was a genuine pass for the lead, Mark. I thought there'd been a problem.
I think Andy went to turn in, suddenly realised the Mercedes were there, had to back off, and then he of course forgot where he was. Kent Abraham handing over then to Jan Brunstedt. Beautiful car. This car is the sister, in effect, of the Ford C100, which is in this race we haven't seen yet. But Zach Speed did Ford's Europe programme. Roush and Probe did the American program. This is what originally was the Ford Probe IMSA car, then became the Roush Mustang because Ford decided not to proceed with it, so Roush took it over and said, I'll call it a Mustang.
This is the leading car of those who have stopped and made their mandatory pit stop. Chris Bunkham is down in 11th place, but that will change because, of course, the 10 cars ahead have all yet to do their stops, and this is very important, just how quickly he can get around. Now, this is, in fact, there are the two similar chassis cars, because that's the C100 that's going by the Roush Mustang. Yep. So that we said we hadn't seen the green and yellow car, and that was...
Kent just got a wheel on the dirt, didn't he, at the complex, and that was it. Round she went.
Let's just watch the back end. There it goes. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Oh, rumble strips didn't help, in fairness.
But again, one of these classic, iconic shapes and names, isn't it? I mean, it's Just looks so good, that car. What we're not seeing today, of course, you're talking about iconic cars. We haven't seen any Rothmans Porsches. Henry Pearman is here, and so is Mark Sumpter from Paragon Racing. They're not racing here this weekend, although the Group 44 Jaguar is. But in the paddock is the Stefan Beloff, Derek Bell Rothmans Porsche, which Beloff managed to somersault at the Nürburgring in 1983, last ever Group C race there. Now, most of you know the Nordschleife now. Think of this. Stefan Beloff still has the world record for that track, 6 minutes, 11 seconds, 126 miles an hour.
In comes the leader. The Mercedes-Benz then into the pits. Rob Shard will hand over to Greg Crick. And again, you won't see any degree of running around, no real need for urgency. Clear out the air intakes at the front. Do you remember at Le Mans in '89, Mark, when they came in for the last stop and the cars were streaked and filthy, and they filled it up, they put the new driver in, they put a new set of tyres on, and then one man was sent around the front just to gently wipe that three-pointed star at the front, and it was the only bit at the front of the car they wiped.
Right. Yeah, Norbert Haug had ordered it, so done it was.
And interestingly, the winning car at Le Mans, when it was put into the museum, I'm pretty certain that they lacquered over the top of all the flies, but it is really noticeable that little piece of work that was done, the three-pointed star is still stands out right at the front.
Of course, this is the C9, which was the last of the series of these cars. They couldn't call the next one, if they ever did one, C10, because that's a very rude word in German. Do you remember that?
Ah, yes. Still a great-looking car, though, isn't it?
Fantastic.
And still, as we mentioned before, a lot of the technology that people were messing about with and just starting to get their heads around, very relevant today. Now, is he going to come back and retake the lead now? He needs to get back on the lead lap, first of all, which he will do this time.
I can't see why not. He had a routine stop. And that Group 44 Jaguar just passed. Of course, that's what started the whole Group C Jaguar programme, really. It was an IMSA car. Your friend Bob Tullius, of course, was involved in that. And Brian Redmond drove this actual car that we're seeing here today. But that car, again, so iconic. I mean, everyone who sees that car just thinks, wow. And it really goes, doesn't it? There's an Acuria Cross D-type transporter in the paddock, and those two things to me are perhaps the most iconic parts of Jaguar.
Very clever man, Bob Tullius. Didn't matter what. He had this affliction. I think he probably would agree with me that he would call it that, a disease for running British cars, whether it was Jaguars or before that he ran Triumphs and various other things. And he just got linked in with it. And in fairness, actually, the engineering of Group 44 was superb. And I think sometimes the factory didn't give them their due on what they were doing over there, and it was rather frustrating.
And I'm sure both of us have seen Bob Tullius at Sebring with his Mustang, haven't we?
Yes.
Years past.
Absolutely.
Doing victory rolls down the main straight.
Now, this is still the leading pit stop car. Now, back on the lead lap. This is the 1-2-1. Chris Buncombe driving on his own. Just an hour-long race, remember, and we are halfway through it, just over, as you can see by the countdown clock. So the question now is, how will the stagger unwind? The Mercedes-Benz is still in the pit lane. Now here's one of the Spices in the pit lane. This is the Andrew Haddon Hervé Ragu Spice.
Yep, this is the 1990 Le Mans car, which Eric van der Poel and Bruno Giacomelli drove.
Now, it looks like we're about to get Mercedes-Benz power refired, and that V8 will soon be powering the Silver Arrows down the pit lane and back into the race. So if I look to the right for 1-2-1, no, that's the 4 car going through. So that's Gary Pearson, who still hasn't stopped, by the way, and he's just done his fastest lap of the race, a 1:42.9. So Pearson with the fuel load coming down, and there goes the 1-2-1 car. So Chris Buncombe's gone through. Now, our timing and scoring screen has not updated for a little while. He is still the top pit stopping car. Jamie Campbell-Walters brought the 22 in.
Yes, sir.
We're waiting for the 62 Merc to pull out. It can't be very long.
Yeah, I think what we're going to find is that you're going to find Buncombe will be leading again once these pit stops are over, because the other cars that have stopped, are shown as one stop, are still actually in the pits.
Correct.
So,
and the Mercedes-Benz is having tyre trouble, so the left rear is being changed on the Merc. Now, as you can see, there's no air guns here, so this is going to take a little bit longer time. Get the old torque wrench out.
On the brakes.
Yeah, anyway.
Foot on the brakes. Yeah, otherwise it'll just spin around.
No, so they had a puncher yesterday in qualifying, had a front right puncher, so I think they're probably just changing that tyre, make sure they don't have a repeat, and obviously a big concern about the condition of it.
And it is very warm and getting warmer. Sun's been out pretty much all through the day.
Now with the iconic colours there, the Momo car, of course, Moretti took his Ferrari 332 P to victory in the Daytona 24 Hours in those colours, you remember?
And 333 SP won the inaugural Petit Le Mans 12 years ago this year. Can you believe that? Almost time to fire up the big German, as through again goes the 1-2-1 of Chris Bunkum across the line. We're still waiting for the 27 yellow Nissan and the number 4 Pearson Silcook car, and effectively now with that Mercedes just rolling out, he has passed the Mercedes.
He's back in the virtual lead of this race from the Mercedes and from Justin Law and Andy Wallace. Andy Wallace now at the wheel, so that's going to be our top 3. And look at that, bit of black sky over there we're looking at.
If you think it's going to rain this afternoon, you dare curse this.
There's a lot of us that got open cars out in the car park, so if we go off air for a while.
So there's the Mercedes getting back up to speed now. Has lost a lot of time, as you might expect. Remember, the 1-2-1 car, the Bunkum car, was leading by almost half a minute. What's going to be interesting to me, Mark, is the Purdy and Pearson cars, which have stayed out there and are still separated by only 8 seconds, whether they could come round after doing their pit stops and remain where they are. And there is the battle for that lead in the class, and Neil Cunningham goes through and takes position.
Yeah, so that's the Ford C100, which of course David Leslie was developing with Cunningham. It's run by Brown Wingfield Racing. I mean, it's such a pretty car, isn't it? Never worked in its day. Do you remember Brands Hatch in the wet? Absolute disaster. The two factory cars both crashed in 1982 in their first Group C appearance.
So that was the pass for the lead in Group 3. As I said, Don Miles as yet has not been shown in the pit lane, so he may, in fact, will get some kind of penalty if that remains the situation, which will promote the 17, the Roush Mustang, the 711 car, which had been leading for a little while in its class, up to second position. Indeed, it's gone through into second position now.
It could be that it's just that the timing screen is not right. Maybe his transponder's not working or something, but I can't imagine he'd deliberately stay out there and not make a pit stop, because he's going to be disqualified if that's the case.
In the next car up in that category is the Richard and Nick Chester Tiger 287, the Eblux car, white and red machine, but he, I think I'm right in saying, is a lap further back. Yes, he is, from that battle.
Yep.
So
Chester's father and son.
There's first and second then in the category 3, class 3, the 711 car. That is a real battle after 58 minutes near enough. And this is the closest battle on the circuit, and this is a battle for the top step on their podium. So there will be no quarter asked or given.
Yeah, Jan Brunstedt at the wheel of this car now. He took that over from Kent Abrahamson just a few minutes ago, and he's really now got, oh, the spinner, that's the 93 car, that's
the Mazda. That's
Dan Daly and the Tiger Mazda. His first time, as we said, at Silverstone since 1977, Ooh. So steep learning curve for him.
And a sticky clutch, I think. Love that sound. Love that sound. He's got it going again, pointing in the right direction. So at the head of the field, Chris Bunkum leads comfortably from Gary Pearson in second position. In third, Andy Purdy is leading his class, the Class 1 machines. The other two guys I mentioned, they're in Class 2, and there is the second place car. And I'm just keeping an eye on the timing screen as Neil Cunningham goes through, just a second and a half ahead of the 711 car.
There's our race leader then, Chris Bunkum, not to be confused with Jonathan Bunkum, and down he comes through bridge into the complex. I think he's just going to get one more lap in after this because the clock is just timing down.
And I've got a feeling that the 79 Ecos car's got a problem. It's gone past us very, very slowly indeed. That's Reggie.
It was in the pits, remember.
And here is the 40 car. This is coming out of 3rd position in Class 3. So
well, got to make his pit stop, isn't he?
Well, at this stage at the end of the race,
according to our timing screen,
that's his first time in the pits, according to the timing screen. There is Purdy going through, just
this will be the last
ahead
lap.
of being lapped by Chris Bunkum. And we're told by the organisers it is the last lap. So revel in 3.17 miles of Group C glory.
Well, don't count it yet, because Andrew Marrett, who's just standing behind us, just pointed out last year Bunkum broke down on the final lap here. So
he did indeed. Yes. That's well remembered, Andrew. He about here. He's got down the Hanger Straight this time, and he's still carving his way past the Mazda Tiger.
No mistakes this time, I think.
Now there is the 78 car, which is also going to win its class. That is the Ecos of Andre Smith.
Yep. Another good
driven solo.
Yeah. Good Scottish driver, Scottish team.
He's up in the top 10 with that car.
Yeah.
8th position.
Super job, isn't he? Really good.
And that's way ahead of the rest of his class. He's got 2 or 3 laps on the rest of the class.
Through bridge for the last time then. Chris Bunkum about to take this win. Big win here this afternoon. It's going to be another race tomorrow afternoon. Won't be the Jochen Mass Trophy tomorrow. It'll be Jackie Eakes Trophy, just to celebrate those 2 great Porsche icons. Round he comes in.
It's been an immaculate performance for the Silverstone Jaguar, run by JD Classics and driven by Chris Bunkum. His margin of victory well over 70 seconds. As he comes to the line, the checkered flag waits for him and is waved. And he will then take the Jochen Mass Trophy here at the Silverstone Classic meeting for 2009. And how appropriate, with Jaguar and the XKs celebrating their anniversary this year, and an absolute bevy of Jaguars on the infield. That car takes the victory. Meantime, in the dying moments, the number 17 Roush Mustang, the 711 car, has got ahead of Neil Cunningham for 10th place, but more importantly, will take the victory in Class 3.
Yeah, here they are as well, just going down to farm for the last time. This is for, as John said, 10th overall. The Courage tucked in behind the Ford C100.
Andy Purdy has also gone across the line, and he wins. He'll be 3rd on the podium, and he will take Class 1. I would think he'd be slightly disappointed with that. He would like to have been mixing it rather more with the Jaguars, of which the 2nd place car is coming to the line now. Across to my right, and there it is in front of us.
But it's a country mile behind. 70
and a half seconds.
Oh, what a dominating drive by Chris Bunkum. Yeah.
Oh, now look at this coming to the line though, because this is that battle for Class 3, and right at the very dying corners, the last couple of corners, the Mustang seems to have stuttered, but just about makes it ahead of the C100 Ford behind it. In there as well, the 22 of Jamie Campbell-Walter and Phil Stott.
Yeah, Phil Stott on board actually at that moment, but he just took that C100 on the line, didn't he?
6th place for that car.
Excellent. I mean, Jamie looked at the car yesterday, said, "I've never driven one of these. What's it like?" And I said, "I don't know. I've never driven one." And he said, "I've never, it's a closed Courage. What they like." So,
and there is the winner in Class 3. There is the winner overall and in Class 2. And tactics, I'm delighted to say, in a pseudo-endurance race, actually paid up there, because the early stop was the way to go, Mark. Now, that's very interesting, that. And I wonder if the guys up and down the pit lane will be watching that, A, for the race tomorrow, but also for the longer race this evening into the darkness.
Yeah, that's a good point.
For the other sports cars. Here's Andy Wallace coming through to the line. He will finish in 4th position overall. He's gone through the checkered flag, and he will claim 2nd place along with Justin Law in Class 1 in the Daytona Jaguar, the Bud Light car.
But as we saw, lapped, wasn't he? He went a lap
not be happy with that.
Sometime
he will not be happy with that at all.
Bunkum, Pearson, Purdy, that's our top 3. And They'll be dancing in the Group C party tonight, won't they?
Warm congratulations, thoroughly deserved by a Singleton driver to take the victory.